For some of us who haven't read the comics, it may seem like this end of the world for Wolverine, since Magneto ripped out all his adamantium during the 9th episode of X-Men 97. But that couldn't be further from the truth, as this is definitely not the first time that something like this has happened to Wolverine. In the episode I just mentioned, titled Tolerance is Extinction Part II, Magneto was determined to mess things up for humans by creating a global blackout. He considered them an inferior race, but more importantly, a race that hated his kind, the mutantkind, and he would do anything to protect the Homo Superior. Of course, Professor X, his old friend, wouldn't let that happen and wanted to reverse the blackout, because letting Magneto have his way not only meant more hatred for by humans, but it would also push Magneto beyond saving, making him a lost cause. So he and a few of his X-Men head to Asteroid M, where Magneto was present, and try to stop him. And although they managed to get his helmet off his head, he placed it on Professor X, barring him from mutant power.
Things would have really gone out of hand had Wolverine not stabbed Magneto with his claws, and this pissed the hell out of the Metal Man, who simply ripped every shred, every molecule of adamantium from Wolverine's body, leaving him so gravely injured that even his healing factor won't work. The X-Men managed to stabilize his body, but by the end of X-Men 97 Season 1, Wolverine had not recovered, which only means that he's gotta go through a lot before he's back. And I confirm he's back thanks to a leaked Comic-Con trailer for X-Men 97 Season 2. But the thing you have to understand is that Wolverine's journey back to his former self would be an arduous one where he will become the notorious feral Wolverine, the most bestial and animalistic form of Logan, who only knows blood and bone and death and destruction. So yeah, things will get worse before they get better. But before that, let's dive deep into this horrifying version of Wolverine that you've probably never seen.
We're back, baby.
Magneto has torn the adamantium out of his body aboard Avalon, and the X-Men are now on their way back to Earth with Logan strapped to a med table that can only keep him stable long enough to reach a proper medical facility. But time is running out, and he's half dead, and probably in the worst shape we've seen him up to that point. As the team rushes home in the Blackbird, Professor Xavier and Jean Grey enter Logan's mind to help him survive. And if you know Logan even remotely, you know that his mind is a more dangerous and dark place than hell itself. What the Professor and Jean find there is a war zone made from memory, trauma, pain, and old enemies who've made home in there, in his mind, refusing to leave. Xavier and Jean find a mental image of Logan under attack by Sabretooth, while he's crucified on a giant letter X. It's almost like the identity he carried all this time, like a wound that had been turned into a monument by his own mind. They see him relive Magneto's attack. The adamantium gets torn from his bones all over again, and the pain is so extreme that even seeing it was too much for Jean, just as it was for me while I was reading the comic for this video's research. After that, the memory shifts to the Weapon X program, where Logan's bones were grafted with adamantium in the first place, and these are the memories that Logan has never shared with any. Private memory, the sort of stuff he locks away because even the X-Men, his chosen family, don't deserve to know about every scar that he's collected over the years. Jean understands that, and I like that she draws the line. She tells Xavier they should leave because this is too personal. And honestly, yeah, she's right. Saving him is important, yeah, but Logan's mind can't possibly be seen as public property. The problem is that outside his mind as well, things are getting worse. The Blackbird has been modified in a hurry for space travel, and now it has to survive re-entry, which is not what the Blackbird was ready for. With heat and atmospheric pressure rising, shit goes bad. And in the middle of all this, Logan's med table breaks loose and slams him into one of the walls. That wakes him up in agony, and even then he refuses to take the metamorphine that the professor was offering because his pain meant that his body was trying to heal itself. But the pain was excruciating, and his own body temperature was going nuclear hot. Jubilee sees all this and of course is shattered because her bond with Logan had always been super special. As the plane continues its descent, Jean uses her telekinesis to hold the Blackbird together, and Xavier has to enter Logan's mind again because Logan's vital signs are fading. Inside Logan's mind, Xavier sees another version of the battle with Magneto. It ends the same way, with Logan broken by the loss of his adamantium. But you see, the bigger issue here is not the metal, it's what the metal represented all this time. I mean, for years, Wolverine built a huge part of his identity around being nearly unbreakable, and the adamantium was not all he had, but it was part of how he understood himself. Now it's gone, and the mental mental image of Logan begins to give up. He moves toward a bright light, ready to let death take him. And then, Illyana's spirit appears before him and she pushes him back. If you didn't know, Illyana is the younger sister of Colossus and the first victim of the Legacy virus, whose death was confirmed in Uncanny X-Men number 304. Anyway, Logan protests, but she rejects him from death. And come on, this guy survived a lot of shit, including the monster he sometimes thinks he is. So he can't just walk toward death out of despair. In Logan's mind, he sees a hand reach toward him. At first, he thinks it's here to guide him into the afterlife, but then he realizes it's Jean, and she's in danger. That's the moment Logan comes back. He comes back because one of his people needs him. And when that person is Jean, he'll cheat or defeat death to help her. So he forces himself out of the medbay, despite the pain, reaches Jean and pulls her to safety as the Blackbird returns to the mansion. And it's in these moments that you see Logan for the character he is, a man who often gets overshadowed by his growls and cigars. Anyway, after he gets time to recover, the truth slowly starts to sink in. You see, Logan was alive alright, but he was not the same. His regenerative factor had weakened, and the adamantium that made him feel indestructible was gone. Still, he insisted on a danger room test because Logan needed to know whether he was still worthy of being part of the X-Men or not. Like, it is super sad because it's like he's asking himself if he can even stay with the people who are his friends and family and colleague in the only home that ever made sense to him. But he surprises everyone and himself and the readers when bone claws tear out of his hand. His claws were part of him before Weapon X turned him into a weapon. This meant that the program didn't create the claws, it weaponized what was already there. Logan soon realizes that his own past has several blank spots, several secrets that he needs to uncover. And because his regenerative factor was not at full strength, the bone claws put him at a risk of blood loss. Moira stops the sequence at once, and the team gets him back to the medical lab. Later, Logan talks with Jubilee on the mansion ground and tries to process the fact that his claws were always bone, and he wonders how he never knew, even before Weapon X. As sad as it may be, Logan's past has been stolen, altered, buried, and lied about so many times that even his own body's now able to surprise him. He tells Jubilee that his life is changed for the better after he joined the X-Men, but now he's not sure where he fits, especially with his regenerative factor weakened. He then lights a cigar, gets hit with a smoker's cough for the first time, and decides maybe he should quit. Later that night, he leaves letters for all his friends at the X-Mansion, picks up his motorcycle, and disappears into the night, while Jubilee watches from her room's window as Logan began on his journey to find his answer. Wolverine 1988. Issue number 100. Wolverine is captured by Genesis, who wants to put back the adamantium. Wolverine had gone through a lot of shit by the 100th issue, and by this point, the loss of adamantium broke more than just his skeleton. It weakened his healing factor, exposed the truth about his bone claws, and left him far less certain about who he was without the adamantium. Logan was told that to find the truth about his purpose, he must visit Akaba, the birthplace of En-Sabah Nur, aka Apocalypse, where he would meet Genesis, the son of Nathan Summers, aka Cable, and Alia Dayspring. But Genesis wanted to force the metal back into him and turn him into Death, one of a new set of horsemen of the apocalypse. Genesis has Wolverine prisoner inside his citadel in Aqaba, Egypt, and the plan is not merely to repair him. That would almost be generous. And Genesis is not in that mood. He wants to rebond adamantium to Logan's bone, wipe his mind, and remake him into a servant of Apocalypse. At the same time, he has millions of Egyptians trapped in a special sarcophagi, their life force meant to feed a baby that supposedly belongs to Apocalypse. The Dark Riders start the procedure, and Logan's body immediately fights back. His healing factor resists the adamantium process, but that resistance comes with pain, and Genesis doesn't care. He and his people push harder, which makes the whole thing supremely sad for Logan, because Logan's already survived one forced adamantium nightmare in his life. Now someone's trying to do it again, except this time with a provision to wipe his mind clean. But two of Logan's friends, namely Cannonball and Zoe Culloden, damage the equipment, and for a moment it looks like he's disrupted the process enough to give Logan a chance. But the Dark Riders recovered in no time and beat Cannonball badly, but the system had already taken too much damage. Logan continued to resist. Life Force tried to regain control, and the holding tanks exploded. Adamantium shrapnel tears through the lab, killing Hurricane and Life Force. and Logan survives. Now, although Logan survives, it all feels very grimdark because yeah, he's alive, but he's not okay. Genesis tries to capture him again, and Cannonball manages to blast them both away while warning they have to stop Apocalypse from coming back. Sam then ends up in the next room along the sarcophagi, badly hurt and barely able to keep himself together. Logan, meanwhile, vanishes into the dark, and that's when the issue starts to reveal the real cost of Genesis' experiment. When Sam wakes and calls for help, Spine attacks him. Logan comes from the shadows and kills Spine. He then begins to hunt the Dark Riders one by one. Deadbolt dies next, then Gauntlet. Dirtnap sees what happens to Gauntlet and chooses survival, which honestly is the first smart decision anyone in the Citadel makes. But this is not Logan as the controlled X-Man, the gruff teammate or the damaged hero who still knows where the line is. Genesis' experiment has pushed him further into a feral state. The animal side is no longer hidden. The feral side is very much in charge. Genesis takes Sam hostage and drags him towards the creche of Apocalypse, hoping to move it somewhere safer. But Logan appears and Sam points out the strangeness of this whole situation. Genesis may have preached survival of the fittest, but now he may not live long enough to see that dream work out. Genesis' attempt to force Logan forward has done exactly that, though not in the way he wanted. It's pushed Wolverine's evolution into something more savage, more instinct-led, and far less human in behavior. Logan attacks Genesis like an animal and cuts him down. Genesis tried to own him, remake him, and use him, and Logan answers with violence so final that even Sam understands what it means. When Cannonball opens the creche, he finds it completely empty, which raises the question of whether Apocalypse was ever inside at all. But for Logan, that part's almost secondary, because the damage has already been done. From the dark, Logan tells Sam to apologize to Cable for killing his son, and he says he had no choice. And this is noteworthy because even in this feral state, some piece of Logan is still in there. He knows who Genesis was, he knows what it means for Cable, and he also knows that Sam will carry that message back. But when Sam asks if Logan's coming home to the mansion, there's no answer. Or should I say the silence is the answer. In other words, the X-Men didn't lose Logan to death, but they lost him in another way. At that same time, far away on a mountaintop, Elektra trains under Stick, and Stick pushes her to sense a warrior who has lost his path. After some effort, Elektra finds him through that deeper awareness and agrees that he has fallen. That means Logan's problem is not only physical, it's rather spiritual, mental, personal, and all the fun stuff that Logan's pretended doesn't affect him. And from this moment, Elektra's mission becomes to find Logan and help him return to the path. Now the story gets carried forward in issue number 101, but before that continues, in another book, more specifically, Uncanny X-Men number 332, the story continues. Uncanny X-Men number 332 picks up with Logan loose in the world, disoriented and regressed into an animal form because Genesis' failed adamantium experiment sped up his decline. The X-Men are after him, but they're not alone. Elektra's already tracked him to Casablanca, and she manages to avoid detection even with Logan's advanced senses. Meanwhile, the X-Men search for him through Landau, Luckman, and Lake, mainly because Zoe Culloden has been part of Logan's recent life. Oh, yeah, so LL&L was basically an interdimensional holding company / law firm that also served Logan, and Zoe is a top-ranking member of LL&L. Professor Xavier wants answers, but Zoe refuses to give up client information. Xavier, who's already afraid of losing Logan after what happened with Sabretooth, pushes her more than he usually would. Jean also searches for Logan's mental imprint and finds him a few miles away, which sends the team after him. Logan, meanwhile, reaches a castle in the desert. It turns out to be the prison of Ozymandias, an ancient enemy of Apocalypse, who spent centuries trapped there after their clash long ago. Ozymandias has carved visions of the future into the place, and when Logan enters, he sees carvings of his own recent history. Ozymandias explains that his prophecies have come true, and that the time of change has arrived. One of the signs was the fall of Avalon, which actually connected directly back to the very instant that Magneto ripped the adamantium from Logan's body. So once again, Logan's personal trauma was not really allowed to remain personal. When the X-Men finally arrive there, they tell Ozymandias that he's free, because Apocalypse is dead. However, he doesn't agree with them, and sends his carvings to attack. The team fought stone versions of people from their world, and one of the constructs based on Wolverine put Iceman and Cyclops in danger. Jean was fighting her own battles, but when she was left vulnerable, Logan saved her from an Archangel duplicate. Then Ozymandias grabs feral Logan and holds him by the head, ready to throw him into the pit where Cyclops has fallen. Jean is hurt, short of breath and faced with the question of how to save both her husband and Logan. Wolverine 1988, issue number 101. Logan is his most feral and even licks Cyclops' cheeks. The issue picks up while the X-Men are trapped in Ozymandias' castle, surrounded by his stone creation. Cyclops is thrown down a deep pit, and at the center of it is an obelisk covered with carvings that seem to show visions of the future. At the same time, Ozymandias grabs Wolverine and gets ready to throw him down too. But Logan, feral or not, is still Logan. He stabs the Stone Man with his claws and dives after Cyclops because Scott's in danger, and some part of Wolverine still understands what that means. Scott tries to slow his descent with an optic blast, but it doesn't help much. He hits his head and passes out, which is great timing, obviously. Meanwhile, Ozymandias creates so much psychic static that Phoenix is left weakened, so Logan becomes the one person who can reach Cyclops in time. He catches up to him, pushes him toward the wall, and uses his own body to shield Scott from more injury, then grabs hold with his claws. Then Logan licks Cyclops' face to wake him up, and it's just weird, but also very, very absolutely feral Wolverine. I mean, when you take this incident with its context, it fits this version of Logan painfully well. He's working through animal instinct, and that makes the panel and Wolverine's actions both funny and uncomfortable. Scott waits long enough to see a carving of Professor X on the obelisk, where Xavier appears as he did in the early X-Men day. That makes Scott wonder how long Ozymandias has been keeping a record of mutant history before he passes out again. Wolverine then climbs back up while carrying Cyclops, which puts both of them in danger from the sculptures above. The other X-Men try to defend him, but pressure builds fast. Elektra arrives as secret and knocks two statues over the edge, though the team doesn't know she's nearby yet. Ozymandias then hurls rocks around the area. Jean gets buried, and when Cyclops tries to reach her, Jagged Stone comes after him. Wolverine throws himself in the way and blocks the attack, which again proves the point that although Logan's mind may be slipping, his protective instinct is still alive. Cyclops blasts Ozymandias apart, and the castle begins to collapse. Even then, Logan helps the X-Men pull themselves together and escape, while Ozymandias breaks apart despite Jean's attempts to hold him together with her powers. Once they reach safety, the others check on Cyclops, but Logan instantly moves to defend him. Jean has to calm down because the feral Wolverine fails to differentiate between concern and threat. Cyclops tells the group what he saw in the pit and wonders what it means for their future. The team decides to leave because Logan starts to act up again, though the simple reason behind it is that he sensed Elektra nearby. But eventually, Logan forgoes his feral state. Wolverine 1998. Issues number 140 to 148, Becoming Death. Wolverine number 40 to 148 puts Logan through one of the craziest arcs there is. First, he and Nightcrawler follow a lead that Magneto may be at a local junkyard. Instead, they find robotic creatures and are forced to deal with, only to end up at a restaurant to talk about the recent X-Men troubles and stories. But the banter doesn't last for long because Logan gets into a fight, and then Solo and Cardiac also come there for revenge over something that he did to them earlier. Nightcrawler, being the man of God he is, acts as the voice of reason, and the fight stops before it could escalate into a full-blown disaster. Back at the X-Mansion, Logan sees Xavier give Marrow a hard time, which sends her out in anger, after which Logan tries to reconcile with her. But Xavier shuts him down by saying he's not a teacher at the school anymore. But that doesn't mean that Xavier dislikes Logan or anything. In fact, in Xavier's eyes, Logan has a larger role, so he should keep to it while Xavier does his own job. And yeah, that might be slightly harsh on him because Logan may be rough around the edges, but he still tries to reach the people who feel out of place. That's one of the better things about him. He has claws, an extremely pathetic temper, and a past full of blood and bone. But he's not just a blunt tool who happens to have sideburns. The story then sends him to the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, where he checks Generation X and their computer system. After a brief scuffle with the team, Gateway transports Logan and Jubilee to Cable's chateau in the Swiss Alps. There, they find Donald Pierce, who explains how he reached Cable's hideout, and then the fight begins. Pierce nearly finishes Wolverine outside, but Kyber arrives, attacks Pierce, and orders his robotic minions to destroy the chateau. Logan remembers Jubilee still inside and saves her before the place comes down. Kyber then calls him by his true name, Logan, and says they'll settle their own score later. People call him Wolverine all the time, but the name Logan forces him to at least remember, if not embrace, that part of his history, pain, and all those secrets that he doesn't quite wish to face. Jubilee tries to talk to him afterward, but he doesn't want to discuss it, and she lets it go. Then the Run drags him back to Alpha Flight's business, and Logan teams with Heather Hudson and Alpha Flight with Sasquatch, Northstar, Aurora, Shaman, and Puck to rescue Guardian and his duplicate, now called Vindicator, from AIM. They damage an AIM base in Canada and find it odd that Department H had no idea it existed, unaware that MODOK has a close eye on them. Heather tells Logan why she is no longer active as Vindicator, mentions the new Beta Flight with Mac's clone as their leader, and even discusses why things didn't work out between her and Puck. AIM soon separates Logan from Alpha Flight. The team gets knocked out by gas and captured, while Wolverine cuts through the complex and reaches the lab where Guardian and Vindicator are held. He kills everyone in that lab and wakes Mac. MODOK learns Wolverine has reached the lower levels, gets furious, and reveals his secret weapon, Garrison Kane, also known as Weapon X. Of course. Logan, Guardian, and Vindicator then find Snowbird suspended in a tank. Guardian remembers her death as one of Alpha Flight's greatest tragedies, so her presence here makes no sense to him. Vindicator finds files on Snowbird and on both himself and Mac. Before they can free her, Kane arrives and he and Wolverine clash, each man sure he's the better one. Wolverine throws Kane into the tank, breaks it, and frees Snowbird. Vindicator helps knock out Kane, and Guardian carries Snowbird away. Meanwhile, Heather hears guards discuss Shaman and wonders why AIM, an arms dealer group, would care about a mystic. MODOK reveals that he's read her thoughts and boasts that they will all die. Logan answers by cutting through AIM's operatives. A giant AIM android joins the fight, and once Alpha Flight is free, they help too. MODOK disables the android with his powers, and it catches fire. Guardian reveals Vindicator is inside it, but MODOK and the few followers left alive escape. Wolverine tells the others they have to leave because the android is about to explode. It does, with Vindicator still inside. Alpha Flight leaves the base with Snowbird alive again, yet Guardian feels he has lost a part of himself. Later, at Department H, Logan, Sasquatch, and Mac discuss Snowbird. Mac says Department H is disturbed by her return, but doesn't care much about Vindicator's death, which feels painfully believable for that kind of agency. Sasquatch explains that Snowbird's body is hard to understand and may have regenerative powers like Logan's, which activated after her death. Mac remembers that AIM siphoned information from him and believes they see Snowbird as a bridge between science and the supernatural. He suspects this is some techno-cult offshoot of AIM, and the information could create a threat worse than anything Alpha Flight has faced. The story then uses a flight with Dum Dum Dugan to send Logan back through one of his Department H memories. He tells Dugan about his first job, where he'd taken down some thugs. Mid-mission, the leader transports Logan away and adds him to a group with Hercules and Carcass. The leader wants them to defeat the Hulk. Logan breaks free, releases Hercules and Carcass, and helps stop the plan. Back in Department H, military officials panic because Wolverine has vanished, while Hulk has entered Canada. And then Logan returns and gets sent to face Hulk and Wendigo. In the present, he leaps from a shield jet toward Hulk, ready for battle. But then comes the real gut punch. The X-Men learn that the man they thought was Wolverine was actually a Skrull imposter. The real Logan had been abducted by the Skrulls after a mission to a Skrull drill site in space and taken to their master. There, he's forced to fight Sabretooth for the right to become Apocalypse's new horseman, Death. Logan has bone claws while Sabretooth has an adamantium skeleton, so it's not a fair fight. But Logan makes a grim calculation. Sabretooth would become a merciless killer as Death, while Logan believes he can beat the Control. So he wins and then gets infused again with the adamantium taken from Sabretooth. As Death, Logan battles Hulk. Near the end, he has a chance to kill him, but he hesitates. That pause is the real Logan under all the control. Hulk punches him and leaves, and Apocalypse teleports Death away to declare his new era, the Age of Apocalypse. Later, in the Morlock tunnels under the X-Mansion, Archangel, Kitty Pryde, Jubilee, and Nightcrawler search for their lost friend, with Psylocke as support. They try to force first, then mental help. Kitty reaches him a little, but Death stabs her in the foot. It's Jubilee, Nightcrawler, and Psylocke who finally help free Logan from the mental control. For a second, it feels like they've won. But then Warren suffers severe pain and cries out that the light never dies in monsters. After that, Logan follows Warren through New York and tries to stop him, while Psylocke uses Cerebro to reach them despite the risk of the release of the Shadow King from the prison in her mind. Warren reaches a hospital and heals a young girl, and Logan realizes his next stop will be Abraham Kairos, Apocalypse's former Horseman of War. Logan blocks him there and fights him, but Warren helps Betsy resist Shadow King's offer. Betsy turns Cerebro off and lets Warren act on his own. At the hospital, Warren convinces Logan to make the right choice and heals Abraham. The next day, Warren tells Logan that he will use his wealth and power to help people. Not a bad outcome, considering this all started with Apocalypse turning Logan into death. Then, the Age of Apocalypse throws Logan into an alternate setup, where Wolverine, Hulk, Spider-Man, and Ghost Rider are the new Fantastic Four. Logan helps the team place Harpy, Betty Banner and Hulk's wife, into the negative zone, but Blastar and Annihilus emerge. The team wins and tries to take Downtime, only for Ghost Rider to be kidnapped. After President Kelly is assassinated by someone who appears to be Dr. Doom, Logan and the other two head to the White House. Doombots attack, and then Doom enters the fight, but he's actually a replica created by Armin Zola. They free Ghost Rider, damage Zola, and escape before a bomb destroys the White House. Outside, they learn Graydon Creed has been elected president. And yeah, even by Logan standards, this is a rough day at the office. So yeah, that's pretty much all the weird shit that's happened with Logan after his adamantium was taken away from him. Of course, all this was necessary as part of the Feral Wolverine and Fatal Attraction sagas, and there's still so much to cover, but that's for another time. If you liked the video, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons and ringing that bell icon. Those 3 small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these awesome videos. Stay safe, have a good one, and don't you dare forget to stay marvelous.